What's up, everybody? It's your boy Norn Radd89 here, bringing you another Radd movie review today to talk about John Carpenter's The Ward. And as of right now, filming this video, this is currently the last directorial film that he has in his catalog. This film came out in 2010. Today, you're going to hear my positives, negatives, and the Radd rating. So let's get into the review for The Ward. Roll it. Before we get into this review, there are currently construction people doing work outside my house in the, street and everything. They're putting down like new lines for fiber wire lines for faster Wi-Fi and stuff. So, fingers crossed, faster Wi-Fi. But just in case you guys hear any background noise, that might be the construction guys out there. But with all that said, let's get into the Radd movie review for John Carpenter's The Ward, which came out in 2010. This is, like I said in my intro, the last directorial film in his catalog. And does it live up to the hype of the rest of the John Carpenter films? Let's get into it. So The Ward follows Kirsten, who is played by Amber Heard, our lead character, who at the very beginning of this film, we just see her burning down property. She's burning down like a house or like a farmhouse and stuff like that, and then she ends up getting caught by the police and ends up getting locked in a psych ward. And that's where we meet a whole host of other characters and everything. We meet the doctor and people that work at the ward, and also, like I said, some other girls that live there, and it's like a psych ward, a place for people who are lost, or they're kind of going crazy and stuff. But she's being held against her will, and she's trying to solve a mystery but also find out stuff about her past. And like I said, let's get into positives right away. Is that Amber Heard, I think, as the lead in here as Kirsten, does a great job. Actually, the full cast in here, we have Danielle Panabaker in here, and Lyndsy Fonseca, I think that's how you say her last name. There's a great cast in here, and I think they all do a good job. Even our doctor too, the lead doctor, I forgot the actor's name, but even him, they all do a great job. And it has a very kind of Shutter Island atmosphere type feel to it, where it's creepy. It's a psych ward. You kind of feel comfortable at some points, but because it's like a hospital almost, you're being held against your will, and everybody's kind of being nice and welcoming at first, but then also you start noticing all the weird things going on. It has that feel, so it fits that atmosphere and the vibe of kind of what you want from a film like this. So no complaints there. Another thing is the story. It kept me interested, and I was involved throughout most of the way. Like throughout the whole entire time, I was interested in the story. It didn't feel like it was dragging on too long, and I feel like it was revealing things at the right points, and we were learning things at the right points. And then when we get to the twist, there is a twist in the third act too. So it is a very simple laid out film in terms of a thriller, in terms of a psychological thriller. It kind of does all the things you want in a psychological thriller. It has decent acting, a creepy setting. I think they shot this at a real hospital, or like a real psychiatric hospital in Washington, I think, or something like that. They actually shot this on location, and it serves the purpose of the story. Like I said, it serves the atmosphere. It doesn't feel like on-set backlots that they built in, studios and stuff. So that really lends itself to the story. But in terms of the film overall, it does have a lot of mixed in negatives, and that's mainly because John Carpenter is one of those directors that's kind of done some of the most greatest, like, upper echelon horror films, sci-fi horror that we've ever had in our generation of movies and cinema. So when you come to a film like this is such a simple film, a simple story, and it is kind of a step back as well compared to a step forward like his other projects. You know what I mean? When it comes to his later catalog, it just feels like John Carpenter got more comfortable doing very simple stories that weren't trying to stretch, his talents that much, and he just wanted the paycheck. And I'm not saying like he didn't put effort into this film. It just feels very much basic compared to some of his other catalog. Let's start going into the mixed and negatives, because like I said, in terms of John Carpenter's catalog, this is probably definitely one of the easiest films to put on the lower end of the totem pole, and that's not to blame the actresses or the story or anything like that. It's more akin to the fact that this doesn't have an amazing score, well, it's just one key thing. That's a John Carpenter thing, is you want an amazing score. All of his films have a very unique style and a music composition to them, and I feel like this one doesn't really have any. And another thing is, when it comes to John Carpenter, I know he's done films like The Fog or Halloween where it's not that gory or doesn't have that much gore, but this film definitely needed to push the envelope in terms of some of the gore moments. That's a huge negative, is that there are decent thrills in here and decent scares, but when we get to the actual kills in this film, they leave you hanging, and it's kind of like blue balls, so you just get very upset. And for me, being a gore hound, it upsets me greatly. And being a John Carpenter film, like I said, you want to have that gruesome gory moments, practical effects moments, and every time they go for it, it's like a cutaway kill. Another thing is that when we get into the third act, and I don't really want to spoil anything about this film, but yet then again, this film is 16 years old. I expect that some of you out there that are watching this Radd movie review have seen this film, especially if you're a John Carpenter lover. And if you haven't, you can go check this film out on Pluto TV. That's where it's streaming for free, so go check it out. But before we get into this, because it's kind of a minor spoiler, when it comes to the twist, what bothers me about this film is that there is a film that did this exact kind of storyline and twist, but so much better. And it was a film that came out 3 years prior to this movie. So it kind of feels like almost that John Carpenter kind of copycatted a script that happened, like I said, 3 years prior. I don't really want to say the film because then it's kind of spoil it, but I do like the other film better than this film highly. So when you watch this film and you go check it out, like I said, it's streaming on Pluto TV, and you get to the third act and you learn the twist, definitely, like, please in the comments let me know if you watch this film or you know it, because, you know, as I said, there is a film that came out 3 years prior to this movie that did the exact same twist, but I feel like they executed it better. But these are just really my thoughts and my opinions on The Ward by John Carpenter. I know this isn't one of his highly regarded films. A lot of people probably haven't even seen this film in his catalog of films that he's done, and like I said, most people that I've seen actually review this film or talk about this film, they've had a bad experience with this film, or they think it's just mediocre. I kind of fall into that camp where I think this is just kind of a mediocre film. This isn't like a film I would never watch again. Like, I would watch this film again, but it's not a film that I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to return to this like every year kind of thing. This is like a film I'd be like, oh, it's been like 4 or 5 years I haven't watched that film. You know, let's check it out. Let's watch it again. That's the kind of vibe I get when I watch The Ward. And in terms of my opinion and my Radd rating, John Carpenter's The Ward is going to get a 6 out of 10. Like I said, just middle of the road kind of thing. There's just so many negatives that hold it back, and it's mainly because it's just a very bland film. And the twist, like I said, is something that I've seen before and done better. And this film is very lackluster in terms of cinematography and also when it comes to the music, which are two big things that I think most John Carpenter films before this you would praise. You would praise the cinematography and the music, and all those things are very highly regarded, whereas this film, it's just like it didn't feel like they were trying as hard when it came to this movie. But these are just my thoughts and my opinions on John Carpenter's The Ward. Please let me know down below in the comment section what are your feelings on this film. Also, like, share, subscribe, do all those YouTuber things we love as YouTube content creators. That greatly appreciate it because it helps out the channel a lot in terms of the algorithm. But most importantly, y'all know what's up. Have a safe and happy day. Peace out.